우리가 83년도에 개업을 할 때요.
네.
이제 중국집으로 해서 처음에 했거든요. 근데 여기 이 앞에 이제 특전사 뭐 사령부 707 저 위에 3여단 다 있을 때거든요. 여기가 다 부대 있으니까 그때는 진짜 토요일날 일요일날은 자리가 없어서 못 받을 정도였어요.
네.
그래가지고 했는데 이제 그 사람들이 다 여기 광주로 이사 가고 그러는 바람에 이제 저기 조금 모여서 이제 이 오리집으로 이제
네.
바뀐 거죠.
가정식 백반으로.
네.
그럼 여기 장사하신 지 거의 한
40년 됐어요.
야, 그러니까 40년의 어떤 그 기억이 이 식당에 고스란히 담겨져 있는 것
예.
같아요. 그렇게 장사를 오래 하셨으면 좀 기억에 남는 손님도 많이 계실 것 같은데.
그렇죠. 이제 여기 돈 없는 사람들은요 무조건 와서 여기 가서 먹어요. 먹고 이제 술도 막 먹고 그러고서 돈이 없대요. 그런데 이제 여기 파출소나 뭐 이제 오래 살으니까 다 알아요. 그래도 또 말하기도 뭐 하고 그러면 이제 가라고 그냥 그러죠. 다음에 또 갖고 오라고.
네.
그리고
네.
보내요 이제.
요즘은 있을 수도 없는 일인데 예전에는
그러면 가만 이제
외상 하시는 분 많이. 많은 분들이 여기를 이제 떠났음에도 불구하고 지금까지 여기를 지키고 계신 특별한 이유가 있을까요?
그 이유보다는
네.
어떻게 살다 보니까 그냥 이렇게 지나 보니까 애들 키우다 보니까 이제 애들 키워서 이제 시집장가 보내고
네.
그리고 하다 보니까 이웃집하고 또 어울려서 이렇게 지내다 보니까요. 그냥 고향처럼 느끼고 그냥 여기 주위 사람들이 좋고 그러니까 그냥 있는 것 같아요.
이게 인심도
예.
좋고 정도 들고 하니까
예.
또 이렇게 단장님 같이 오래
예.
사신 분들 또 그밖에
예.
또 토박이 분들도 항상 찾아주시고 하니까.
예. 그래가지고 이제 사랑방식으로
예.
많이 사람들이 와요 우리 집.
그래서 여기는 아까 제가 단장님한테 듣기로는 여기
예.
단체 예약이나 예약 손님
예.
아니고선 잘 안 받는.
예,
그러니까 거의
그러니까.
여기 마을 주민분들.
예.
어.
그 여기 마천 일동의 단체들은 많이 와요.
네.
예.
그러면 이제 앞으로
예.
우리 남편분께서 사장님께서 좀 말씀을 좀 해주시면 더 좋을 것 같은데 여기 이 식당이
예.
이 마천동에서 어떤 식당으로 어떤 의미로 동네 분들한테 남아있으면 좋겠다는 그 어떤 좀 얘기를 좀 해주신다면. 네.
오랫동안 있었기 때문에
네.
이제 생각나는 사람으로 이제 같이 어울려서 고향 모든 이제 말 그대로 사랑방
네.
그런 식으로 생각해갖고 그래서 또 생각도 우리도 주변에 한번 더 한 몇 년 동안 더 할 수 있지 않나 그런 생각을 했는 거지.
네. 오래돼 보입니다, 사실.
This valuable picture will one day become history.
사진을 정말 잘 찍어주신 것 같아요. 현장감 있게.
그러니까 이쪽이 이제 사라지는 그 마을이잖아요.
네.
그러니까 제일 먼저 사라지는
그렇죠.
거니까.
네.
사지고.
예, 사지구래서 그래서 이 이제 요쪽을 쭉 찍었어요. 그래서 이제 국기관을 중심으로 굉장히 오래된 건물이
건물이에요.
있잖아요.
예.
여기가.
그러니까요.
그죠? 예, 그
60년은 됐을 거예요. 그
네.
건물이.
그러니까 기록의
옆에
의미로
보니까 뭐 국수집도 있고
예.
세탁소도 있고.
예.
예.
The married couple says they always wish to greet anyone who finds them whenever.
정말 떠나지 마시고 이 동네를 저 오래오래 잘 지켜주십시오. 예. 네, 감사합니다. 네, 저희는 이만 물러가겠습니다.
The owners have a big heart and love, just like the old days of the town itself. I wish they make more happy memories that have already filled their lives. Roads we've always walked on and the scenery we've always seen, the familiarity and timelessness sometimes makes us forget how valuable they are. A tour of Macheon-dong today especially leaves a sense of sadness. And maybe the most yearning thing is the friendship and love shared amongst the neighbors. I will keep a page of memories made here in Macheon-dong today, deep down in my heart for a long time.
도시는 세계와 연결되어 문화를 창조했고 새로운 것을 받아들였다.
함께여서 우리는 더 자유롭고 더 멀리 갈 수 있어.
닫힌 문이 아니라 열린 질문으로
나에게 에이펙은
자유,
융합,
국제성,
다양성, 포용,
개방.
신라의 정신이 에이펙 2025로 이어집니다.
Hello and welcome to our morning edition of Arirang News. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour. President Lee Jae-myung addressed the United Nations and unveiled his vision to ease tensions with North Korea and achieve peace on the Korean Peninsula. He also said a new South Korea has returned to play a role in the international community. Also at the UN, U.S. President Donald Trump warned Russia that he's ready to impose strong economic measures over the war in Ukraine. And in a dramatic shift, he said he now believes Ukraine can win back all of its territory after meeting with his Ukrainian counterpart Volodymyr Zelensky in New York. South Korea's finance minister, Koo Yoon-chul, is set to meet U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent in New York as trade negotiations remain deadlocked. Separately, Seoul's top trade negotiator Yo Han-gu also departed for Malaysia, where he will meet U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer. We begin this morning with President Lee Jae-myung's speech at the UN General Assembly. He put forth a new initiative to end confrontation on the Korean Peninsula and declared Korea's complete return to the international community. Our top office correspondent Yoon Jung-min is traveling with the president and files this report from New York.
A new initiative to end confrontation on the Korean Peninsula was among the overarching themes during the first UN speech by South Korean President Lee Jae-myung.
교류, 관계 정상화, 비핵화, 즉 END를 중심으로 한 포괄적인 대화로 한반도에서의 적대와 대결의 시대를 종식하고 평화 공존과 공동 성장의 새 시대를 열어가야 합니다.
By that, he meant expanding inter-Korean exchanges, seeking efforts to advance inter-Korean relations as well as the relationship between North Korea and the U.S., while seeking realistic and rational solutions to achieve denuclearization. President Lee revisited his three-stage roadmap involving halting, reducing, and dismantling North Korea's nuclear and missile programs. He once again made it clear that Seoul is not pursuing any form of unification by absorption. And his debut on the world's major stage for multilateral diplomacy meant more than just that.
저는 오늘 세계 시민의 등불이 될 새로운 대한민국이 국제사회에 완전히 복귀했음을 당당하게 선언합니다.
He was referring to Korea's recovery from the martial law incident last December, adding that the resilience of Korea's democracy not just belongs to Korea but to the entire world, in tandem with the UN spirit. He also laid out his vision for the use of AI that can contribute to the universal values of humanity, which will also top the agenda for the UN Security Council open debate on Wednesday local time, led by a South Korean leader for the first time. During his roughly 20-minute speech on Tuesday, he mentioned Republic of Korea 33 times. And here at the UN General Assembly, the South Korean leader did not forget to mention K-culture, saying it connects people all over the world beyond borders, language, and cultural differences, stressing universal empathy and solidarity. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News, New York.
And after addressing the United Nations General Assembly, President Lee Jae-myung on Tuesday held a series of bilateral meetings with world leaders at the UN headquarters. His first meeting was with UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres. According to the presidential office, Guterres described South Korea as a trusted partner of the United Nations and pledged active support for the Lee administration's North Korea policy, aimed at rebuilding trust and easing military tensions. President Lee, in return, called for the UN's backing so that the two Koreas can move toward a framework of dialogue and cooperation. He also met with Uzbekistan's President Shavkat Mirziyoyev and Czech President Petr Pavel, where the focus was on strengthening bilateral cooperation. Also at the United Nations, U.S. President Donald Trump delivered a speech warning Russia that he's prepared to impose strong economic measures over the war in Ukraine. The U.S. leader also said he now believes Ukraine can regain all of its land lost to Russia in a dramatic shift in his position. Our Lee Seung-jae reports.
U.S. President Donald Trump delivered a combative speech at the United Nations General Assembly in New York on Tuesday, warning Russia that he is prepared to impose strong economic measures over the war in Ukraine.
In the event that Russia is not ready to make a deal to end the war, then the United States is fully prepared to impose a very strong round of powerful tariffs which would stop the bloodshed.
However, Trump said he wants America's allies to match those steps, especially by cutting off Russian oil purchase before Washington takes action.
China and India are the primary funders of the ongoing war by continuing to purchase Russian oil. But inexcusably, even NATO countries have not cut off much Russian energy and Russian energy products, which, as you know, I found out about 2 weeks ago, and I wasn't happy.
On the sidelines of the UN General Assembly, Trump also held talks with Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky, asked whether NATO countries should shoot down Russian aircraft if they violate Allied airspace. He agreed they should be able to. The comments come as Russian drones and fighter jets have repeatedly crossed into the skies of Poland, Estonia, and other NATO members. The alliance has already held emergency consultations under Article 4 and warned Moscow that Article 5, which calls for collective defense, could be triggered. Trump later posted on Truth Social that with the European Union's support, Ukraine is in a position to fight back, reclaim its territory, and ultimately defeat Russia. He added that Washington will continue to supply NATO with weapons so that they can use them as they see fit, signaling continued indirect weapons support for Ukraine. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
So as we just heard, President Lee Jae-myung delivered a speech at the UN General Assembly and outlined his vision to achieve peace on the Korean Peninsula. For more on this, we're joined today by Professor Andrew Millard, Assistant Professor of International Relations at Taiwan National University. Professor Miller, thanks for joining us this morning.
Good morning.
So President Lee said he'll work to ease tensions with North Korea at the United Nations instead of focus on exchange normalization and denuclearization, what he called the END initiative. What's your overall assessment of the president's message last night?
So overall, the speech itself is quite a safe speech. So he mentioned, and really the key issue was that South Korea is back. So he mentioned this new South Korean Republic. He talked about South Korea now becoming a global leader on certain issues and also participating in multilateral fora to try to resolve some of these global issues such as climate change, responsible use of AI and world peace. Now, he didn't sort of directly mention the Ukraine war. He didn't mention Gaza, Palestine, or anything like that. But towards the end, he did mention North Korea. And as you mentioned, he has now sort of unveiled this new END initiative. Now, END, exchange, normalization, denuclearization. If you think about it, really, this is just kind of a continuance of previous Korean democratic governments' sort of functionalist approaches to North Korea, trying to get this engagement and lead to long-term development of relationships, which I think is definitely the right way to go about it. However, in his speech, he did mention that we need to start looking at it more realistically. And in my opinion, this continuing talk of denuclearization, this is something that I think the South Korean government needs to move away from, because North Korea, for the past 10, 15 years, has basically made it clear they will not denuclearize. They will not freeze development or anything like that. And so when Lee Jae-myung yesterday was talking about denuclearization, I think this is only going to deter North Korea from joining any future negotiations.
I see. And like you mentioned, President Lee also said a new South Korea has returned to play a role in the global community. And he's emphasized the importance of democracy several times in his speech. So he was apparently referring to the South Korea back on track after the martial law attempt in December, especially since he was elected after a snap election in June. So what are your thoughts on this?
So again, this was quite well predicted that he would be talking about these democratic challenges and how South Korea was able to overcome its own challenges and now is sort of back on the world stage. So again, I think his key message was really South Korea is back. It's a strong democracy. He's wanting to reassure the global community that what happened last December, this was just a one-off situation. But even in those crises, South Korea is capable of overcoming these strong challenges and can therefore also, again, play a global role. Because as we see in the current sort of chaotic global situation, there are many countries which are going through some form of democratic challenge. We see in America, over the past couple of weeks, there's been a lot of talk about authoritarianism and freedom of speech. In the UK, again, similar stories. Turkey, Hungary, Venezuela, various countries around the world all have sort of similar democratic challenges. And therefore, I think Lee Jae-myung's key message was South Korea has a lot of experience overcoming these. We can help other countries around the world.
I see. And tomorrow he's also going to chair an open debate at the United Nations Security Council. Why is this so significant?
So again, he mentioned this in his speech. He brought this up. So the UN Security Council is a very powerful body, even though it's much smaller compared to the General Assembly. This is really where they have meetings where after the meetings, action takes place. And as South Korea is now chairing the presidency for this month, which is, to be honest, really good timing, this means that South Korea can set the agenda. They're setting agendas, issues that South Korea can, in the future, play a leading role in. So I think this is really a very strategic choice that they haven't really put North Korea on the agenda. They haven't talked about issues where they don't have so much control. Instead, AI, South Korea is a leading technological country. AI is definitely an issue and a global issue that everyone is interested in, where South Korea, Lee Jae-myung can go and say, look, we're a leading country in this. In the future, we can play a major role. And also he mentioned in his speech that at the end of next month, there will be the APEC meeting and AI. So the APEC AI initiative he mentioned will also be a key issue then. So he's promoting this as well.
Right, we'll have to keep a close eye on the debate tomorrow. All right, Professor Miller, I'm afraid that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for your insight, as always.
Thank you.
Thank you. The OECD has maintained its 2025 economic growth forecast for South Korea at 1%, unchanged from its June projection, according to the Ministry of Economy and Finance. The OECD's 1% growth forecast is slightly higher than projections from the South Korean government and the Bank of Korea at 0.9%, as well as KDI and the IMF at 0.8%. The OECD also projected a 2.2% growth rate for 2026. The presidential office credited the positive outlook to proactive fiscal policies and consumer stimulus measures such as livelihood recovery consumption coupons. And as Seoul and Washington work to finalize details of their trade deal, senior officials from the two sides are set to resume tariff talks in the United States and also in Malaysia. Our Park Jun-an reports.
South Korea's Finance Minister Koo Yoon-chul is set to meet U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent in New York on Wednesday to address stalled tariff negotiations. This meeting comes after a deal was made in July to lower U.S. tariffs on South Korean goods from 25% to 15%, which was tied to a pledge by Seoul to invest $350 billion in the U.S. However, some details in the deal, particularly regarding the investment package, have yet to be finalized. The U.S. is demanding that South Korea significantly increase the share of direct investment within the $350 billion commitment made to the U.S. in exchange for the implementation of a 15% tariff for South Korean automobiles. The South Korean government maintains that a $350 billion cash deal would shock the country's foreign exchange market. President Lee Jae-myung warned in an interview with Reuters last week that without a currency swap, withdrawing and investing that sum in the manner the U.S. is demanding would mean another IMF situation for South Korea, referring to the 1997 Asian financial crisis. South Korea's Trade Minister Yo Han-gu departed for Malaysia on Tuesday to attend the ASEAN Economic Ministers meeting, where he will meet U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer.
We understand the tariff challenges for our companies in sectors like semiconductors and steel, and we're working to reflect their interests. We're engaging through various channels to secure safeguards and ensure fair commercial terms.
But with the ASEAN Economic Ministers meeting the primary purpose of Yo's visit, it's believed it would be difficult for follow-up tariff negotiations to achieve meaningful progress. Park Jun-an, Arirang News.
Now, on the local front, the trial of former First Lady Kim Keon Hee, who is indicted on charges of stock manipulation involving Deutsche Motors and receiving illicit funds from the Unification Church, begins on Wednesday at the Seoul Central District Court. This marks the first time in South Korea's constitutional history for a former First Lady to stand trial as a defendant. The court has decided to proceed directly to trial without a preparatory hearing and has partially approved media coverage. Images and footage of Kim seated in the defendant's seat will be released before the proceedings begin, but filming will not be allowed once the trial gets underway. Shifting gears, South Korea and Egypt celebrate 30 years of diplomatic ties this year. And in honor of the 30th anniversary, a series of events in Egypt is bringing the two nations closer through art, music, and shared heritage. Our An Sung-jin reports from Cairo.
The land of the pyramids. With over 7,000 years of history, Egypt has long stood at the crossroads of culture and commerce. This year, it hosts a unique celebration of diplomacy and cultural exchange.
And here in Cairo, South Korea and Egypt are celebrating 30 years of diplomatic ties with a series of events promoting further cultural exchange.
A collaborative concert between the Cairo Symphony Orchestra and Korean soprano Cho Soo-mi symbolized this friendship between the two nations, resonating with themes of unity, peace, and cooperation.
I believe that through music we can show and we can feel and we can share about our true feeling, which is like peace and take care of each other.
Those cultural ties were also shown through a special exhibition which focused on traditional Korean gift boxes. Usually made from mother-of-pearl lacquerware, the boxes are typically given as gifts, and several boxes that were on display had been given as diplomatic gifts to Egypt. The exhibition also featured other diplomatic artifacts, including gifts, official documents, and video archives that reflect the evolving cultural dialogue between the two nations.
There are actually fascinating parallels. From Korean Hanji and Egypt's ancient papyrus, this exhibition worked on bridging two distinct yet resonant traditions.
The exhibition is being held at the Museum of Islamic Art in Cairo, the largest of its kind in the world.
It's both a welcome and refreshing opportunity to spotlight Korea's connection to our region. I hope this successful collaboration leads to more Korean exhibitions here in the future.
I came today to see an exhibition that beautifully blends Egyptian and Korean cultures. It's a dynamic exhibition that mixes Islamic and Korean elements really well.
As Korea and Egypt celebrate this diplomatic milestone, the events in Cairo not only honor the past, but help build a stronger, more connected future.
While 30 years may not be long, it's been meaningful. We've built strong cooperation. And as a strategic hub, I hope more Koreans take interest in Egypt's culture and history to foster lasting economic and cultural partnerships.
안성진, Arirang News, Cairo.
Good morning, I'm Choi Ji-hee, and this is The World Now. Super Typhoon Ragasa has caused a mountain lake to burst its banks in Taiwan, killing 2 and leaving dozens missing. The strongest storm of 2025 has already had a devastating impact on parts of the Philippines and is now barreling toward Hong Kong and southern China. Taiwanese authorities reported on Tuesday that Typhoon Ragasa had hit the east of the country, killing at least 2 people. Some 30 people are missing and over 20 have been injured. Over 7,000 people were evacuated and more than 11,000 households lost power. The storm had made landfall in the Philippines on Monday, killing at least 3 people, injuring at least 9, and displacing more than 17,500 residents. Now Ragasa is moving towards southern China, and authorities in Hong Kong, Guangdong, and nearby provinces are preparing for its arrival on Wednesday. In Hong Kong, the typhoon warning has been raised to the maximum level 10, while schools, flights, and public transit are shut down. Guangdong has ordered mass evacuations, and Macau shut its casinos. French President Emmanuel Macron, who is visiting New York to attend the United Nations General Assembly, said if Trump wants to merit a Nobel Peace Prize, he must act to stop the war in Gaza. Speaking to France's BFM TV from New York on Tuesday, on the sidelines of this week's UN General Assembly, Macron said there's one person who holds the power to end the Gaza war, and that is the U.S. president. Macron said that unlike France, the United States supplies the weapons being used in the conflict, giving it unique leverage. He said that while Trump has stated that he wants peace, such statements are insufficient and that the Nobel Peace Prize is only possible if you stop this conflict. He also said that stopping the war must include releasing hostages held by Hamas. Claims by U.S. President Donald Trump on Monday that Tylenol use during pregnancy and early vaccination in children contribute to autism have been condemned by experts. They include an autism expert and researcher at the University of Texas at Austin who told Reuters, "We have strong evidence that acetaminophen is not causing autism." UK Health Secretary Wes Streeting joined the rebuttal, saying don't pay any attention whatsoever to what Donald Trump says about medicine, noting that there's no evidence linking paracetamol use in pregnancy to autism. Streeting pointed to a major Swedish study of 2.4 million children published in 2024, which found no causal link. American Space Agency NASA announced on Tuesday during a news conference that it may resume crewed lunar missions with Artemis 2. The mission, which could take place as early as February next year, would be the first to carry astronauts to the moon in over 50 years. If safety reviews are approved, the mission will send 4 astronauts aboard the Orion spacecraft launched by the Space Launch System rocket. This 10-day flight will orbit the moon before returning to Earth, but it will not include a landing. The trip is intended to test the systems of the rocket and spacecraft, paving the way for a future landing.
Today, we are in for another round of heavy autumn rain nationwide. The recent heavy rains are caused by a clash between two air masses. Cold air from the north, which recently blocked the powerful typhoons, is meeting with a warm, humid air from the south. And this is creating a moisture highway over our country, leading to these frequent and powerful downpours. Morning rain on Jeju will gradually spread across the rest of the country. And until tomorrow, we could see over 100 millimeters in the western parts of Korea. The capital region and parts of Gangwon-do province might get up to 80 millimeters. The heaviest rain is expected in the central regions from late this afternoon. Temperature-wise, Seoul will see highs going down a couple degrees with rain, topping out at 25 degrees this afternoon, but Gwangju will be much warmer at 30 degrees. Looking ahead, there is more rain in the forecast in southern regions this weekend than nationwide showers on Sunday. So please keep an umbrella handy.
That's all we have for this morning. Arirang News will be back at noon Korea time. Thanks for watching.
Curious about Korea?
And especially K-food? How familiar are you with Korean food? The sea on three sides, a mountainous terrain, and 4 distinct seasons. Thanks to these conditions, Korean cuisine bursts with diverse and unique flavors.
Do you prefer sweet or spicy?
A meat lover or a seafood connoisseur?
Can't decide?
There's got to be something here that you like.
For Koreans, rice is foundational. It's a staple and the centerpiece to all meals in Korea. There's bibimbap, rice mixed with vegetables, gukbap, rice in hot soup, and kimbap is the demand around the world.
For me, it's noodles over rice. Korea has amazing noodle dishes. Chuy ramen and cold naengmyeon to blow away the heat. A meat lover here, pork, beef, chicken, I like them all. Did you know that bulgogi is listed in the English dictionary? There's also the famous chimek, chicken and beer, which is the best combo for a night out with friends.
Surrounded by the sea on 3 sides, Korea has a great selection of seafood, from raw fish to piping hot seafood soups. It's mouth-watering just talking about it. The 2 pillars of Korean condiments, gochujang and soy sauce.
Ooh, what do you prefer?
gochujang. I like anything made with gochujang. In general, Koreans love spicy food.
I prefer the soy sauce base. There's something about the salty and sweet that hits the right spot. I think even those who are trying Korean food for the first time will really like it.
But that's not all.
We can't leave out the street food. If you're in Korea, it's a must-try. They are both treats for your eyes and mouth.
How about it? Mouth-watering, right?
Korean food, you've got to try it. Discover a whole new world of flavors.
Held its first debate over the weekend.
The economy is expected to expand 2.5% this year.
Boosting Korea's ties with its global partners on the sidelines of the Status UN summit.
A massive drone attack on Ukraine overnight on Monday and Tuesday.
Arirang.
We're here to bring a new type of news show.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Bringing news just for you is Wednesday, September 24th here in Seoul. I'm Isujin, and this is News Generation. Joining us today is Julian.
Happy Wednesday.
Good to have you, and also Moonji's with us.
Good morning.
Good morning. And both are here to speak on behalf of people in their 20s and 30s. It's Wednesday, the middle of the week, and as we push through the midweek slump, some grab another cup of coffee, some scroll endlessly on their phones, and others look for the latest trends online to keep things interesting. And speaking of trends, it feels like every once in a while there's a new type of person that Gen Z and millennials latch onto and make go viral. And these trends don't just stay online either. They spill over into real conversations, dating culture, and even workplace chatter. So here's the question for today. So have you heard about this idea of performative males? Did you?
Yeah, I've heard of this performative males, which we refer to men who construct their personalities, preferences, and behaviors primarily to attract women's attention. A typical example might be someone, reading a philosophy books while listening to music with traditional wired earbuds and sipping a matcha. Filming this kind of curated aesthetic and sharing it on a social media has once sparked a major trend, especially on a global platform, TikTok.
Right, so what about you, Julian? Are you familiar with this term?
I would say I'm relatively familiar with this terminology. I've seen men dressed in this aesthetic, so I don't know, but for context, a performative male is basically a man who pretends to like certain things that are often considered girly just to get attention from girls. So for example, if a man doesn't genuinely enjoy matcha or labubus, but buys them because they're trendy and popular with girls, that is the quintessential performative male. So the goal is to basically look opposite of what a toxic male would be. Many social media videos showcase this performative male aesthetic, which usually includes baggy pants, cropped t-shirts, t-shirts and a tote bag. But just because someone fits the aesthetic, you can't fully tell if that's their genuine sense of style or if it's really just performative. But I would say you can usually tell by having a conversation with them and see if they have a genuine interest on these trends and issues on feminism.
So I've also seen these competitions pop up on a lot of different college campuses, from UPenn to UNC, and online clips show contestants showing off books by women like Jane Austen, sporting tote bags and wired earbuds like Moon Jae and Julian mentioned, even sipping matcha lattes, and they're all part of this kind of performative male aesthetic. So to see just how over the top these trends have become, let's take a look at the screen to learn more.
Every so often, a certain type of person takes the internet by storm. We've seen everything from the pick-me girl to the mob wife aesthetic to the so-called hot rodent boyfriend, and now the internet spotlight has shifted to a brand new figure. He's known as the performative male, a guy defined by his carefully curated display of sensitivity, intellect, and so-called wokeness, which often comes across as more show than substance. Today on News Generation, we dig into why this persona has gone viral and what it might be saying about the way society views masculinity.
As we just saw in the video, these competitions really highlight the extremes of the performative male trend, from carefully curated outfits to dramatic displays of wokeness and sensitivity. It's a world where every gesture, every accessory, even the choice of books or drinks becomes a way to signal a certain image to others. And as we mentioned at the start of the show, a performing male is someone who takes the things typically associated with women and queer culture and turns them into a kind of aesthetic more for show and social approval than genuine interest. So this makes me wonder, are there some traits of performing males that you actually enjoy or find interesting? Like, we mentioned matcha lattes or books by women writers. Or to put it more directly, would you ever consider yourself a performing male, wouldn't you?
I say no, because I'm a book hater. If you ever catch me reading one, call the authorities because something has clearly gone wrong. And anyways, but I do love matcha, and I often wear wired earbuds just because simply I always forget to charge my Bluetooth ones. So probably one day, if I hold a book, anything but philosophy, at the cafe, sipping a matcha with my wired earbuds, probably could be a performative man, but at this point, I don't think I could call myself a performative male. Yeah.
So obviously, this is not just like bad traits as well.
No.
We're talking about some interesting traits like matcha lattes.
Yeah.
You're technically halfway there. So
yeah, I think I'm more than halfway. But if I could ever be, because I'm a very famous book hater among my friends, so probably I am just not born to be. But I will try one day. If you find me reading a book, that I'm being a performative male that day.
So we're talking about more of the cliche kind of stereotypes of the trend. But what about you, Julian?
This is a very good question, but to an extent, I do feel like we all are performative in a way, because I think we all just want to fit society's standards. And maybe I do fit the aesthetic a little bit because I do love, just like what Moonju said, I love drinking matcha lattes, and I do like to carry a tote bag around because it's convenient, especially when I lived back home in LA. But in general, no, I wouldn't really necessarily consider myself to be a performative male. And my reason is mainly because I don't feel like I'm acting disingenuous to myself or changing my core values just to get other people's attentions. I do like to experiment, to try new things, to see what I'm interested in, but I think that's just part of being in our 20s, experimenting with our fashions, taste, and figuring out who we are and what we like. So I guess that's not exactly what performative is.
So I mean, there are certain traits associated with being a performing male that's not too bad. So what are some things that you think is more positive?
Something positive about performative males, I think that they actually really care about like their image and their fashion, and I think that is something that's good because you want to present yourself in a more, I guess, nice way, and I think that's just something that is important to try to. Yeah.
So it seems like this trend has taken over college campuses in the US and social media feeds everywhere. So just how widespread has this trend really become, Julian?
Yeah, so it's become fairly widespread on social media. So for example, TikTok males tagged performative males have racked over 28 million views, while those tagged #performative have surpassed 149 million views. So on TikTok and Instagram, a trend has emerged where performative males compete over those who have the most softer taste in music or who owns the most rarest tote bag. This aesthetic can also be spotted offline, especially on college campuses and in more urban, trendier neighborhoods. So for example, in Seattle's Capitol Hill, a well-known hip neighborhood, there's even a competition to see who can pull off the performative male look best, a take on the most popular US trend of hosting celebrity lookalike contests, which we will discuss later.
So it's interesting how these trends turn everyday things like music taste and accessories into points of competitions. Like who knew tote bags and playlists would be part of viral competitions? So since accessories play such a big role in this trend and businesses are quick to capitalize on it, how are fashion and lifestyle companies responding to the performative male phenomenon, Moonju?
They are definitely responding to this trend. You know, the fashion and publishing industries have increasingly launched, products targeting the performative male archetype, which are with the traits that we've discussed earlier. To complement this image of performative male, as you can see from our screen here, these brands kind of promote loose-fitting shorts or like oversized shirts or jackets, and minimalist, eco-friendly tote bags. And advertisements also feature sociology books, especially those on feminism ones, and analog hobby items like film cameras, which are all curated to appeal to performative males.
So what I personally find so amusing about this trend is that the props themselves aren't really bad. Like obviously philosophy books or feminist literature things I feel like more men should read, and matcha is actually, we both mentioned, you guys are both matcha fans as well. So in a way, more power to them for bringing those into the spotlight. But if you were to, enter a performative male competition, which of these props would you, bring to these competitions?
I think I would bring eco-friendly tote bag, because I used to bring my bags with all the time, and I do have some of eco-friendly tote bags, so I think it's the easiest one that I could bring anytime. And I think that that kind of makes what a performative male look as a performative male, because males tend not to bring bags with them often, and so I think that's how performative males are not defined, but kind of majorly defined, so I think I'll bring the bag.
So a lot of men are going all out for these competitions, and to get a closer look at this viral trend, we'll be speaking with someone who actually has first-hand experience. A young person actually attended a performative male competition in the US and captured it on video. And that conversation is going to take place right after the break, so don't go anywhere.
NewsGen wants to hear from you. Go to YouTube and search out channel Arirang News. Click Posts and cast your vote in the poll. Make a new type of news with us.
Joining us today is Hannah, a young resident of Seattle who filmed a performative male competition that gained a lot of attention online. So hi Hannah, thank you so much for connecting with us today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
So how common are men in the US who you would describe as performative males, and what do you personally think of them and this trend?
Yeah, honestly, it's pretty funny because I feel like nowadays you can't even walk into a city coffee shop without spotting at least one performative male. They either have their tote bags, as you were mentioning, their matcha lattes, maybe a Sally Rooney novel poking out of their pocket. Even at the performative male contest, people were carrying around vinyl records under their arm for no reason. So it's definitely not rare. It's practically what is a subculture now. I would say from Seattle to New York to LA and pretty much every city in between, there's versions of these performative males everywhere. And the thing is I don't necessarily think it's bad, like sometimes it's pretty funny and it's pretty sweet because they're trying to present themselves as very thoughtful, feminist, and emotionally intelligent. But then sometimes you're also like, okay, like, are you actually like this, or is this kind of just a costume and a bit for you? And so I think that's kind of where this meme kicks in. It's definitely like a real world version of Instagram aesthetics. And at the end of the day, it's just pretty entertaining, and it's really telling of where culture is at, and it gives us something all to laugh about.
Great. So I am curious, but what was your experience like at the performative male contest, and what were the contestants and the vibe like?
Yeah, for sure. So being there was honestly kind of surreal. It's probably like one of the biggest events I've been to in Seattle with just hundreds of people all gathered in Cal Anderson Park. And the energy was pretty wild. It was organized by @stuff by Gwen on Instagram, and everyone was just fully leaning into the bit. So again, tote bags everywhere, vinyl records. I think I counted like 50 different Labubu dolls. So they were definitely there as well. But the energy was really similar to Washington Square Park in New York, where it's just kind of chaotic and everyone is there to like have fun and have a good time. So the competition actually had two different rounds. First, guys were judged on their outfit and their vibe, and then we all clapped for them. And then the guys who had the most claps moved on to the second round, which was a trivia round. And so we were asking questions like, name 5 women who inspired you, or who is your famous female artist? We even asked some guys when women got the right to vote, and a lot of them surprisingly didn't know. And so they were booted out, which was pretty funny because that's kind of the entire point of being a performative male. But I think that's what just made it really funny. You know, the whole room was kind of in on the joke, and it was chaotic, but definitely in a good way where everyone was cheering, laughing, and overall just having a good time.
Yeah, I see. It's very interesting to find out that there's a performative male contest. And our last but not least question for you today is, why do you think the performative male trend has become popular, and do you see it continuing this in the future?
Yeah. So I think the idea of a performative male works really well because it's basically just peak internet culture playing out in real life. You know, nowadays everyone is addicted to Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and you see the same trends permeate through all these different platforms. And so social media rewards irony and aesthetics, and performative males are basically the 2025 version of a walking meme of that. And so the whole vibe is, you know, I'm sensitive, I'm cultured, I read women authors, but it's kind of delivered with just enough energy that it's almost a parody. And I think that's what really resonates with people because it's funny, it's charming. And then, you know, at the same time, like for the future, I don't really see the idea of a performative male disappearing. I think if anything, it's just going to evolve into a new, like funnier and also weirder form. And so I think just give it a year, we might see performative males at hot yoga with the next Labubu doll clipped onto their mats, drinking mushroom coffee and posting about it on TikTok. And so I think overall Gen Z really just thrives on irony and niche aesthetics. And so it's basically become its own genre of a guy, and we're all just kind of sitting back watching the lore build now.
I think you brought up a really good point, because I think for me personally too, like seeing a guy maybe that I could talk about Sally Rooney books with would be such a plus for me, and also a guy that's, you know, more woke and kind of feminist. I feel like these are now considered attractive qualities, so as long as it's not like misleading or inauthentic, I feel like this is a really fun trend, so I agree with you on that.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah.
So we just heard from a young person in the U.S. who told us what it's like to attend a performative male contest. She shared her thoughts on why the trend has become so popular, and even gave us a glimpse into the kinds of traits and aesthetics that define these performative males. We've also talked about how popular performative males have become, what the competitions are like, and how the trend has spread online. But the bigger question remains, why has the performative male phenomenon taken off in the first place, Moonju?
Yeah, I mean, there might be a lot of reasons, but one possible reason here is that today, you know, individual taste has become more important than, you know, societal expectations. In the past, many men feared being seen as not as masculine enough, an image now associated with performative males that we've discussed earlier. But, you know, recently trends like Aegennam, or performative male, has been gaining the popularity, while Aegennam refers to, you know, men who are naturally gentle and soft-hearted, and performative males consciously shape themselves to align with women's preferences. You know, these kind of shifts suggest that traditional gender roles have lost their grip, whereas strong, assertive, and dominant men were once considered ideal to women. More women today are drawn to, you know, men who understand themselves, respect themselves, and warm, harmless, and emotionally attuned.
So it seems like the popularity of performing males suggests that women's preference for understanding, respectful partners are reshaping what's considered an ideal romantic partner. So traditionally, men were often judged by their career success or income. So do you think performing males represent a shift in how masculinity itself is expressed, Julian?
Yeah, I would say I think so. But there are claims that performative male trend is seen as a product of economic recession. As the era where jobs guarantee masculinity comes to an end and youth male unemployment raises, some men seek recognition not just through economic power but through image. This new form of masculinity is what performative male represents. So, for example, in the US, the economic downturn has affected young men so strongly that it's even led to the term he-cession, which is a portmanteau of the words he and recession, which serves as evidence of this trend.
I fully agree. And this also reminds me of how there's a growing awareness around toxic masculinity, which is really significant. And today, many women have also proven themselves fully capable of taking on the so-called provider roles, which typically men, I feel like, have taken on more. And it means that traits like sensitivity, respect, and openness are being recognized as not just as valuable, if not more, in men. So it makes me wonder, in this kind of changing times, like, what do you mean like to be a man these days? Or how would you just define masculinity?
I guess when it comes to define masculinity, I think it's just up to the individual. I think everybody can have some kind of level of masculinity and they have their own way of defining what that means to them.
I think things are really changing. I think that kind of reminds me of like America Ferrer's iconic monologue in the movie Barbie, which captured the impossible kind of expectations of being a woman. It says, like, she says, you're supposed to love being a mother, but don't talk about your kids all the time. You have to be a career woman, but also be looking out for other people. You're also supposed to be pretty for men, but also not so pretty that you tempt them too much or that you threaten other women because you're supposed to be part of the sisterhood. So there's changing, views on femininity and what it means to be masculine as well. So it's quite fascinating to think of that as well. And while that speech is about women, it also, as I said, raises this is a very important point. And that's why it's important to also rethink about what masculinity means as well, which this trend does. And so it's also fascinating to see this shift from career success and final status to image, style, and social signaling for men. And trends like performing males aren't just about aesthetics, they reflect deeper social and economic changes, showing how young men are adapting to a world where traditional markers of masculinity are no longer the only way to gain recognition. So this got us wondering, so what do people actually prefer when it comes to masculinity today? So to find out, we turned to our Arirang News YouTube community and asked them a simple question: which do you prefer, performative males or more traditionally masculine men? 52% of respondents said they are drawn to the performative male, the stylish, trend-conscious type, while 31% prefer the traditional masculine male. The remaining 17% selected other types. So it's interesting to see that more than half of the people surveyed are drawn to the performative male. It shows how much modern ideals of masculinity are evolving. So it looks like traditional masculinity is no longer the only ideal. Style, sensitivity, and social awareness are also increasingly valued. So while performative males do show traits that seem woke, appearing socially aware, progressive, and sensitive to issues like feminism, there's also some criticism of this trend. So can you explain what those critiques are, Julian?
Yeah, so there are a lot of critiques and criticisms on why men do this. Some people say that performative males do not genuinely embody gentleness, rather they adopt it simply to gain popularity with women. For example, a performative male might not truly hold those beliefs, yet carry books with feminist slogans purely just for display. And there's a chance that if you were to discuss these topics with them, they wouldn't have any idea how to respond, just like how we discussed in our interview, adding to the frustration that people have with performative males.
So this really highlights the performative side of the trend, image over substance. So it's an unfortunate reminder that just because someone appears to be social aware, it doesn't necessarily mean that their convictions match. So it's a problem because some people may assume performant individuals genuinely share their displayed values, which can lead to misplaced trust or expectations. And performative acts may also end up reinforcing the very stereotypes they're supposed to counter. So, Moonju, do you have anything to add to this? Have you seen other criticism people have about this trend?
Yeah, just briefly, appealing is important, but the authenticity is equally crucial. So, I think it's very important to remember that true love can only be fulfilled through the sharing of genuine traits.
So this is kind of a personal question. So in the polls, the polls mentioned traditional masculine people, and also our topic for today, performing males. Which would you categorize if you had to categorize yourself into one of those two?
If I had to answer between the two, I would say performative males, because as you can see from my image, I'm not that kind of masculine people or person. So I think I have to say performative male, but without the book part.
But then there's positive traits associated with
yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
Are there specific traits with performing males that are more positive that you would associate yourself with?
I don't know, because I like matcha again here. I like matcha, and I think I'm more of I think I have to call myself performative male, because I'm not that dominant or aggressive or I'm not leading person. So I think, and then there are a lot of positive parts in the performative male. So I think it's not a bad thing to be a performative male. It's just a matter of how you treat those and how you think those performative males are. So yeah, I think I have to call myself more close to performative males.
So while the performing male trend has sparked plenty of debates, not all negative as we've mentioned, on the positive side, it promotes traits like sensitivity, thoughtfulness, and awareness of social issues, qualities that challenge traditional stereotypes of masculinity and encourage men to be more empathetic and considerate. At the same time, there's a risk of these traits being showcased superficially, more for show than genuine conviction. But whether playful or performing, the takeaway isn't just about tote bags or matcha lattes, but about recognizing that social awareness about the importance of feminism, inclusivity, and equality are increasingly valued traits in today's world. And this brings us to the end of today's episode of News Generation, but News Gen will be back tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Korea time. Big thanks to Julian.
Thank you for having me today.
Coming in, and also Moonju.
My pleasure.
And to all our viewers, thank you so much for watching, and we hope you have the best day. We are News Generation.
How to survive in Korea. Workplace. Step 1. Lunchtime. The most important morning routine is to check today's menu. Food is essential for survival. Memorize today's menu. The highlight of office life. Lunchtime. Rice in the bottom left, soup in the bottom right. The top is for the sides. The sauce and the spoon go here. This is the basic layout, but it's a bit odd to switch rice and soup. When you're done, pour the leftovers into the soup bowl. It doesn't look that appetizing, so wait until others are done eating. Step 2. Neng, nep, nenep. These are the most used expressions at work. Choose the most appropriate form. Neng, nep, nenep. Remember that the formal ne can sound a bit stiff. Did you just say yes? Absolutely not acceptable. You want to find the right word for the right occasion. Step 3. Desteria. Desteria is the oasis in the desert. Show them your character. If you're not the diligent type, get a stooky plant. Work is tough. Laugh and the whole world laughs with you. Weep and you weep alone. Stay put, like the stooky that survives in the desert. Hang in there until the end. Of course, you can always quit. You matter more than anything else. Step 4. Survival kit. Every worker needs a survival kit. Survival kit level 1. This position gets the most exposure. Grab one when you need a sugar boost. Always keep a few treats you can offer your co-workers. Survival kit level 2. These are for hunger pangs before and after a meal. You'll need them when you take a coffee break with your office buddies. Survival kit level 3. Trash talking your boss with your soulmate. Did you survive in the workplace? Office romance? Be careful. Even the photocopier knows all the gossip.
전라북도 진안